Sorry about the delay. I see I'm frozen, but I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd, and I've been hearing some things that are quite alarming in my head. So I decided, hey, you know, man, remember that list? Somebody'd go like, all right, who had monkeypox for August? Right? Who had nuclear war for January? Who had New World Order for January? I'm going to play this stuff for you guys, and y'all are going to trip out. But before I get there, this came in the mail. Trust to build, promises to keep. Smart creation. For Houston residents, dear Floyd, you are cordially invited to attend our free seminar and meal presented by Smart Creation, your local pre-planning experts proudly serving our community. Everything you need to know about cremation today. Planning ahead takes the burden off your loved ones at the saddest time of their lives. Social Security and veteran benefits. Cost of cremation versus funeral. Cost of smart creation versus other cremation services. Smart creation promise advantages. Travel and relocation program. Your menu for today's presentation. Our buffet is never short of tasty menu options to pick from. Whether you prefer burger, soup, or salad, or a hearty hot meal, Golden Corral will keep your body fueled for the day. Golden Corral Northwest Freeway. It is a free buffet. Steak burger bar, awesome paws roast, meatloaf, fried fish, baked fish, pork entree, fried chicken, pizzas, Bourbon Street chicken, and chicken and noodle dumplings. Limited seating, RSVP required. Please call our automated phone line 24 hours a day to make your reservation. And they're having 3 sessions. I'm not making that up. That's a first. Getting solicited for cremation. But the funeral homes do it too. So apparently there's smart cremation. I don't know what it is. I didn't even look at it. But there's one more video I need to go find for you guys. So let me go round it up real quick. Whoops. Pre-production is always a bitch because you gotta go find all this stuff, collate it, get it all queued up and right where you want it. And history, and that was yesterday. I watched that right. Give me 1 second here. Okay, yesterday is pretty sure I shared it, but for some reason it's not popping up. Let me just go find it in my subscriptions. Okay, now I won't be able to find it, looks like. That's crazy. Scanning my messages. Yeah, let me get an excerpt on that one. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Let me go look. Sorry. Sometimes it's what it is. Of course, YouTube's slow. Come on. All right, these are my subscriptions. Oh, I know I watched it earlier. You know, I can't believe it's not front page news and everybody talking about it. It's insane. What's really going on? Damn it. Nope. For that one. Yep, that's it. Sorry.
How far are we from Russia using nuclear weapons against Europe?
This is President Putin's top advisor, as you see right here at the top.
2 years. Now, if
Did you hear that? Let me rewind that.
How far are we from Russia using nuclear weapons against Europe?
2 years.
Did you hear that, folks? 2 years. I'm telling you, y'all need to listen. Pay attention.
Now, if they do, well, 1 year. Well, first of all, I've been calling on my government to escalate.
How far are we from Russia using nuclear weapons against Europe?
2 years. Now, if they do, well, 1 year. Well, first of all, I've been calling on my government.
Well, 1 year.
To escalate earlier. But
Here's a war hawk. He wants to go to war. He wants to bomb Europe. Okay? Pay attention.
President Putin is very religious and he's cautious. And we have been climbing up the ladder of escalation, changing our nuclear doctrine and lowering the nuclear threshold, building up our nuclear potential in Europe and else, but in the hope that we could stop them before crossing the threshold. As I've said, I think that Putin believes that using nuclear weapons, and I believe, by the way, is a sin. But it might be a necessary sin in order to save humanity. That's why I have been calling for limited use of nuclear weapons against Europe, because
To save humanity. You heard that. Y'all pay attention.
otherwise the world would drift into a third world war, towards which Europeans are pushing all of us I mean, they have already done that twice in history, sucking the United States. You a couple of times saved them, you Americans. We once suffered, but then saved them again. But now they're back, and with the old game, and we have to either to punish them or to help them to change their minds. It is not. I'm not calling for regime change, but if Europeans do not change these elites for more national-oriented, for more responsible, they are doomed. And I hate this idea.
He's talking about the elites. He's talking about the people over in Davos, people in the World Economic Forum. Basically the Illuminati or the New World Order, whatever you want to label them. Pay attention to what's going on, folks. Russia is our ally. Always has been, man. I've been rooting for Putin the whole time. I wanted to get t-shirts made that say rooting for Putin. Fuck yeah. Yeah, go look at their country and then go look at Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, Minneapolis, New York, Memphis, Nashville. They're all shitholes. And we're supposed to be the top tier?
Because culturally I'm a European. Of course, we are moving towards Siberia, we're moving towards East. We're saying and sincerely that we are becoming a Eurasian nation, or returning back to where we belong, to become the Eurasian nation. But the loss of Europe would be a pity.
Before I ask you about what you think Russia should do relative to the rest of the world, become Eurasian rather than European, which it seems to be doing. If there were nuclear strikes from Russia into Europe in the next year or two, as you said there may be, what countries would that include?
Well, we are online, so I have written that several times, that if we strike Poznan, Americans would never respond. Americans would never respond anyway. But if we, and I hope the Poles are becoming, by the way, more sensible. They understand that they are playing with fire, and they're trying to retreat from the front lines of this conflict. But my choice would be Britain and Germany.
You take out Britain and Germany with nuclear weapons.
I beg our Almighty that wouldn't happen.
Yes.
But Germany should be the first, because Germany is the source of the worst in the European history. But I hope.
Did you hear that, Germany? Germany's one of the main industrial capitals of Europe, folks. Right? Nothing like German engineering.
Again, I have many German friends. I hope that it would.
You've, I think, just came back from Beijing. Certainly the ties between Russia and China are much, much deeper than they were 4 years ago. From an American perspective, the idea of a permanent Russia-China alliance is a threat to our future, it would seem. Is that alliance permanent?
Well, for the time being, for the foreseeable future, it is a source of great strength both to Russia and to China, and our Chinese friends understand that. But what will happen in 10 to 15 years, we do not know. So we're planning for all kind of futures. But our best solution is to reach a world where four great powers will be working together for defining, the rules of behavior in the future world. These four powers are China, Russia, United States, and India. That kind of configuration also means that we will, and we should, and we will, of course, balance the overall preponderance of China vis-a-vis Russia. But at this juncture, China is a fantastic asset. It is not a threat. But just in case, we should create this at least 4-country system. Plus, we are building what we call Greater Eurasia. And that is a system of relationship where China will be balanced by major powers within Eurasia, including India, Persia, Turkey, and Russia, and others.
He's basically mentioning BRICS: Brazil, which he left out, which is in South America, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, which is, again, on another continent. That could be the others. But you see, he did just find some in the Middle East, nuclear powers as well. There comes a time when somebody's going to have to pick some sides around this camp. And, we're going to continue listening to this video and some more videos. And you're going to hear things that should just terrify you. If they don't, well, you probably don't have a soul.
The Chinese, we talked with them sincerely about necessity to balance them. It is hard for them to solve that, but they're starting to understand that it is in their interest to create a balanced system of relationship within Eurasia. But worldwide, United States should be a key player, because without the United States, we will not succeed in dealing with the unbelievable problems we are facing in the coming years.
Does Russia jeopardize its soul by leaving the West, given that it's a Orthodox country, its cultural legacy is Western?
No. We are saving our soul. Of course, some of my compatriots would not agree with me, but let us remind you and me and others that our soul came from the east and from the south. We took Christianity from Palestine, and Orthodox Church is the true Christianity, because Catholics left at the beginning of the previous millennium. We parted with them, but still, of course, we're Christians, and we're brothers. We are very much an Islamic country, 20% of our population. We also take it from the south. Then we have a strong Buddhist population. We also take it from the southeast. And Judaism is also here an acknowledged religion. And the political system, which we have built over years, we have inherited from the greatest empire of them all, from Genghis Khan Empire. But of course, many Russia would disagree with me, but it is simple truth. We are Asian empire with a very strong European cultural influence, which we love and adore, and we would never part. But we are not Asian, we're not European, thank God. And we are now starting to acknowledge that, because our European journey has been which Peter the Great started for, because of certain reasons, because we are backward in technological terms, is over. It should have been over 150 years ago. It would have saved us from many troubles, including things like world wars, communism, etc. But now we're parting, but hopefully keeping the traits of European cultural heritage which we share with you in our hearts and our minds.
So the new year is here, but that does not mean you've got to overhaul your whole life. Have Europeans tried to invade Russia? A few. How many times have Europeans tried to invade Russia? A few. Napoleon tried. Why does everyone want to invade Russia? It's far away. It's freezing. No one ever succeeds in doing it. It's like Afghanistan or Yemen. Not a long track record of victory. If outside forces taking control, there are a few peoples around the world that are tough to beat, history suggests. And the Russians are at the top of that list. So why do people keep trying? Well, in a word, resources. That's why. Russia is unimaginably large, literally unimaginably. Most people in the West haven't imagined how large Russia is. Russia is larger than China and India put together. You combine the landmass of China, so big you can barely get your head around it, and India, almost as big, and together they're smaller than Russia. Siberia itself is about the size of the continental United States, and there are like 10 million people living there. In all of Russia, there are about 140 million, something like that, in all of Russia. Meanwhile, Russia has the deepest energy reserves in the world, some of the highest uranium enrichment in the world. It has, by some measures, the most gold in the world, silver, bauxite for aluminum, timber, by far the largest timber reserves in the world, which people still need, by the way. Pulp for paper, dimensional lumber for building, people still need trees. And Russia has more than any other place, primarily in Siberia, but not just in Siberia. And of course, farmland and agricultural products, fertilizer, wheat. Russia has as much or more than anyone and very few people. So the promise of access to Russian resources and space and land has been a siren that has called invaders for centuries. And no judgment, by the way, you can see why. If Greenland is a prize, what is Russia? The biggest prize of all. And you saw this attitude on display the moment the wall fell. And rapacious foreigners, mostly bankers, moved into Russia and stripped it. And they were helped along by a lot of unscrupulous indigenous Russians.
What did I tell y'all? What's that called, folks? Disaster capitalism and vulture capitalism. That's what I told y'all about capitalism.
It wasn't just outsiders who did it. Some Russian oligarchs did it to their own people. But the fact is, a small group of people denuded the country, looted it. And unfortunately, this always plays out in exactly the same way. It's not enough to loot. You have to take everything and drive everyone else into despair, hopelessness, and poverty. And that's exactly what happened. Russia 30 years ago, 35 years ago, was certainly the poorest country west of, I don't know. Who even knows? I mean.
And most of you don't remember the bread lines watching the news. Yeah, people waiting in line to get bread. And then you'd get there and they'd run out of bread. I don't think you folks understand world dynamics at this current state. And most of you probably don't give a fuck because it's not on your doorstep. Well, guess what?
Bhutan? Really poor. And divided and sad and defeated, and alcoholism and drug use and gasoline huffing and suicide were endemic. And who did that?
Does that sound familiar?
Well, the Russians to some extent did it to themselves. You know, they were living in this Soviet system for 70 years. But outsiders did it to them too. That's a fact. And whatever you think of Putin, he's bad. Putin got that under control. And Russia in 2026 bears no resemblance whatsoever to Russia in 2000, the year Putin took over. And one of the main changes he made is he kicked the money changers out of the temple. He did. Sorry. Everyone else has forgotten that, ignores it. He kicked the oligarchs out, or he brought them to his side. You can't act independently of the national interest. Sure, you can become a billionaire, but some of it has to go to the country. And that was spun in the West as cartel behavior. He's the mafia boss. Okay, fine. He's the mafia boss. But the real answer to the question, did it work or not, is obvious not just in the numbers, but in the state of the country, the visible state of the country now versus 25 years ago. It's a completely different place. It's no longer Bhutan. It's not Africa. By some measures, it's much richer than any country in Western Europe. In fact, by every measure it is. By every single measure. Is it richer than Spain? Is it richer than the UK? Oh yeah, much. So that is both tempting to elites from around the world. Wait a second. Why do 140 million Russians get all this stuff? We should have some too. But it is also an indictment of their leadership. If you're Boris Johnson and your ancestors ruled the waves, ruled the British Empire, and your country is a kind of sad Urdu-speaking museum now, that's insulting. Really, the Russians? Those weird half-Slavic, I mean, they dominate world chess, but like, really? They're not really white, and how are they doing so well? This is outrageous. It is an indictment of your own leadership. And in countries across Europe, the leaders feel that way. Russia is an embarrassment to them because it is, relatively speaking, thriving. And so they all, as one, backed the Biden administration's plan to have a war with Russia. And let's stop lying. This was not an unprovoked invasion. Putin just randomly went over the line into eastern Ukraine and stole these oblasts. He stole this land that belonged to another people. That's a total lie. And it's not a defense of Putin to call it out as a lie, because it is. And everybody knows it now. The truth is that in 2001, Putin, same guy, same leader, asked the Bush administration in person, directly to George W. Bush, I would like to join NATO.
Who was George W. Bush's father? And who was his father? Of course, you would know the answer to the first one, George H.W. Bush, but the second would be Senator Prescott Bush. And then before that, they were into firearms and banking. Have you ever heard of the Harriman brothers? Yeah, they married into them. The Walkers, George Walker Bush. The Walkers are bankers. Again, arranged families. But what Tucker's describing right here is Russia wanted to join NATO. If you don't know what NATO is, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So we're going to go back and
Putin, same guy, same leader, asked the Bush administration in person, directly to George W. Bush, I would like to join NATO. I would like to join the defensive alliance that exists to keep me from moving west into Western Europe. In other words, you won. I'm joining your team. And due in part to his own limitations as a leader, and due in part to the counsel that he received from Condoleezza Rice at the time, George W. Bush turned down that offer and prevented Russia from joining NATO. And the guest we're going to speak to in a moment, if you're wondering if he has a good track record of calling future events, said at the time, this decision to turn down Vladimir Putin, this is 25 years ago, Vladimir Putin's request to join NATO, to join the West, to all be in it together, to work together. This decision made by the Bush administration guarantees a collision with the West. We are now on a collision course. And of course, he was absolutely right. Because NATO didn't want Russia because NATO wanted a war with Russia, and boy, they got it. And so from 2001 all the way to 2022, 21 years, NATO moved inexorably east, surrounding Russia. And many times, again, this is not a defense of Russia, it's just a fact. Many times the Russian government under Putin said, whoa, 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 whoa. You are threatening our core national interest, which is not to have other people's missiles on our borders. Back off. And then in 2014, the Obama administration overthrew the government of Ukraine to put an American puppet in there, thereby sealing the fate of nations. When that happened, and Sergei Karaganov said it at the time, you have just guaranteed a war in Ukraine that will destroy Ukraine. So as you...
And all the names he's talking about, all these are CIA puppets. Who was the director of the CIA? George H.W. Bush. Oh. Didn't his grandfather, Prescott Bush, have a hand in creating the CIA from the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services? That's right, Floyd. Okay.
Listen to the interview, and we hope you listen carefully because the English is not flawless, and it was done over satellite from Moscow, so it's not the best audio, but it's worth listening. That man that you're going to hear has a long track record of calling events right.
And that's the senior advisor to Putin that you just heard.
And it's not to detract from his powers of perception or his intellect, which is formidable, to say other people could have drawn the same conclusions because it's pretty freaking obvious. If you exclude Russia from NATO, you're probably seeking a war with Russia. And if you try to put nuclear armed missiles on Russia's border, you're probably going to get a military response. That's exactly what he said. And of course, he was laughed at in Europe, where he'd spent a lot of his life. And he was totally ignored by the United States. And our policymakers were on to this, that, or the other thing. They were not paying any attention at all. And to the extent they were very excited for this war with Russia. And they never really explained why. And then once that war began 4 years ago, they began to act through their proxy, the Ukrainian government under Zelensky, truly a proxy, in a war that has been managed from day one, in part by the CIA, our CIA, targeting by the CIA. Anyone who tells you that's not true is lying. They began to act with not just recklessness, but extreme recklessness, the kind of behavior that suggests you don't care about the consequences at all. You're just all in. Actually, at some point, the kind of behavior that suggests a death wish, that suggests, like, I actually want a nuclear holocaust. I'm happy to risk the lives of my family, my nation, and the world in a nuclear exchange. And we know that because of what they did. They blew up Nord Stream, which was the main source of natural gas for Europe. So that did two things. One, it destroyed the European economy. That was obviously going to happen. And it did. Because you can't have a robust economy, certainly not a manufacturing economy, without cheap energy. Without cheap energy, you're left with what? Real estate and finance. And of course, the people making these decisions are familiar only with real estate and finance because that's the world they live in. But in the real world, countries become rich and powerful and stable and resilient because they make things. So that's the first thing. We blew up Nord Stream. So that destroys our supposedly closest allies in Europe, particularly in Germany. Germans hate themselves so much they won't even admit that we did it, but we did it. Through proxies, but we did it, as we said we would. And the second thing that it did is send a very clear message to Russia, we're done. We're not going to have a kind of Vietnam scenario where we have a proxy war, but, you know, there are limits to our behavior. Yeah, we'll spray Agent Orange, but we're not actually going to, you know, level Hanoi. We bomb it on the edges, but we're, you know, there are limits to what we're going to do because we don't actually want a war with the Soviets. American and NATO behavior since the beginning of this war suggests there are no limits at all. Blowing up Russian infrastructure, trying to assassinate Putin repeatedly. They lie about it, but yes, they have. Yes, they have. The Ukrainian government has tried to assassinate Vladimir Putin multiple times. Has the CIA assisted with the targeting of those drones? Yes, obviously. Tell me how you didn't. No one's even asked them. And again, it's not taking sides against the United States with Russia. No, it's trying to think clearly about what are the potential consequences of this kind of behavior, torquing it up consistently over 4 years to a point where you've cornered a great power. Oh, but that's the problem. They don't consider Russia a great power. When we started this company, we promised